April 4th, 2017. Jeremy is in Newark, Nottinghamshire for the national launch of Labour's local election campaign. He is introduced by Bethany Barker, who is later forced to resign as General Secretary of Nottingham Labour Students' Committee after racist tweets emerge, which she posted back in 2014 when she was just 14 years old. Jeremy outlines the key issues and pledges for the campaign. So much of politics is just repeating the same phrases and sentiments over and over. The cuts to public services, the housing crisis, the social care crisis, etc. I'm not a huge fan of speeches and I'm rarely moved. It's a tense time for the party. In an interview with The Guardian, Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell had told them Jeremy's team were locked in a 360-degree struggle to survive. Matt Zarb-Cousin, Jeremy's press secretary, in an interview with Jacobin said, "There were times when certain journalists would find out about events immediately after they had been approved. There were endless leaks from Labour HQ, which makes it incredibly difficult to function in a professional way." The poll ratings were very poor. Labour were polling at around 25%. The Tories had a huge lead at 43%. Rowena Mason from The Guardian asked, despite all of these crises, why are the Tories still 20 points ahead? It's a stick the media can regularly beat Jeremy and the left with. Journalists were constantly bringing it up. Everyone in politics should be held to account, but they never held the Tories to account the way they do with Jeremy. In an interview after the event, Paul Brand from ITV asks if these local elections will be the final test of his leadership. Jeremy reacts angrily to this question. He said the press was obsessed with his leadership and was failing to report anything the Shadow Cabinet was actually doing, and failing in their duty to present a balanced picture of events. Matt Zarb-Cousin described journalists' typical behaviour at press events. When we held events, rather than just covering the event and scrutinising the policy, the press would seek out a trivial issue in an attempt to mock the whole thing. It felt like this was constant. It was a campaign to undermine Jeremy. A lot of them really couldn't be bothered to engage with what we were trying to put forward. Why bother trying to engage with something these journalists are certain will fail miserably? Political journalists will often pretend they don't understand basic concepts. Many of them still try to claim that neoliberalism is not a real thing. According to a study by the think tank Sutton Trust, 51% of the 100 leading journalists in the UK were privately educated. And many of them went to either Oxford or Cambridge University, and most of them did the same degree, philosophy, politics and economics. Many journalists spend all of their time inside Westminster. To them, politics is just the Houses of Parliament, Downing Street and the elected MPs. They don't understand the idea of political movements outside of this. As I spent more time engaged in activism, I came to regard these people with contempt. They have a herd mentality, yet they all believe that they're independent thinkers. But they all express the same types of opinions from within a very narrow establishment framework. They defer to powerful interests and reflect their beliefs, and do not accurately report on many aspects of ordinary people's lives. And the effect of this is that many members of the general public simply do not trust journalists or the mainstream media at all. Filming here today meant I could see it happening in real time. Paul Brand and Rowena Mason looked bored. After Jeremy answered a question, they did a little eye roll to each other. When the revolution comes, these people will be put in the stocks and pelted with rotten vegetables. When Tom Watson, deputy leader of the Labour Party, was introduced by Jeremy, he got a much smaller applause than the rest of the shadow cabinet seated beside him. He helped organise the coup against Jeremy and is now regarded with suspicion and disgust by those on the left. If the Labour Party under Jeremy was able to get into power, this antagonism from the press will only intensify 1,000 times over. political theorist Perry Anderson wrote, "When a Labour government is in office, it is an isolated, spotlit enclave, surrounded on almost every side by hostile territory, unceasingly shelled by industry, press, and orchestrated public opinion. Each time, in the end, it has been overrun." The Social Democrat believes capitalism can be tamed, controlled, and harnessed for moral ends, that it can be made to act responsibly for the greater good. But a Marxist knows you can no sooner tame capitalism than you can stop the setting of the sun.